We will start with the forms, and you need to design forms, right? And well, it's more of an art. Probably you'll find tons of material available on designing forms and reports in MS Access, and you need to do that, right? Because if you go back and look at the lecture that is entirely on project, then in the deliverable we have mentioned that you should have at least 2 hierarchical forms. So if you're doing that presentation in front of me or even in front of TS, then they will have the instruction to look for at least 2 hierarchical form and probably maybe few simple forms and at least 1 report. Okay, so please design those. It's extremely simple. Okay, and I'll just show you how to make simple forms. It is up to you if you want to add more details into that. If you want to make it more pleasing to eyes, yeah, please go ahead and do it, right? But you should at least have the minimal hierarchical forms that work. They should work. Okay, so in this lecture and also the next lecture, which talks about reports, which is already posted, you will find some link to the YouTube, right? So there are these interesting YouTube videos which you can find, you can watch before you start designing these forms and reports. Fairly straightforward. So I'll do some demo for you. So yeah, please design the forms and reports. So hierarchical form. I did look at the project lecture, right? Make sure that you are doing everything that is required in the project deliverables. Like at least 5 queries you should have, and these are the queries that you have to come up with on the database. And then make sure that you have required number of entities and relationships. Make sure that you have sufficient data in each table. Then you'll think about queries. And yeah, then you need to design forms and reports as well. Okay, so the hierarchical form you can create for the relationships, right? For simple forms you don't need more than 1 table, but for a hierarchical form you need 2 tables, and the hierarchical forms are used for providing the GUI to a relationship which is one-to-many. Right, so look for one-to-many relationship and design a hierarchical form. Okay, so simple forms, for simple forms you don't need more than 1 table, but for hierarchical form you need 2 tables, and these 2 tables should be connected by a relationship. Right, so make sure that you establish that relationship. What happens? This is a topic that I find not that interesting to teach in class, right? Because this is more of an exercise, right? Maybe it's like making PowerPoints. I consider that as making PowerPoints. It is up to you how much beautiful you want to make your PowerPoints, right? So I was trying to do this thing and it was not working for me. I tend to forget this thing, right? The other concepts in databases are easier for me to remember. They are conceptual. This I don't consider that conceptual, right? So to make it short, when I was trying to create the hierarchical form, it was not working out for me. Why? Because those tables that I was trying to connect, they were not connected with each other using the relationship. So that's what I'm trying to tell. So since you'll have an RDM, I don't know whether you're designing RDM in MS Access or in Workbench. So if you're designing your RDM in Workbench and you want to create a hierarchical relationship, hierarchical form, then make sure that you have made that connection in the relationship. Then only it is going to work, right? I'll explain to you what I mean. So let me straight away take you to the demo, so it will make more sense. Here is the MS Access. Duplicate, and now okay, so let's start with awards. So when you have to create a table for awards, so here I did create a lot of forms because I just wanted to show the demo, and I have a report as well. So we will look at these. We should further create these forms, and then those forms will be listed over here. So let's try to create the form for awards table. I will create a very simple form for awards table, and for awards table I cannot create I can't create a hierarchical form because that is just one table. Okay, so you can create a hierarchical form only for one-to-many relationship, and for that you need two tables at least. So let's start with the simple form. I'll go to create, and in the create you can use form wizard. That's the straightforward, very simple approach to design the form. I'll go there. Right now you can see that it is asking me for the source table. There are so many options available, right? So I mean there are three tables here: awards, department, and employee. You can pick any one. I'm picking the awards for the reason that awards table has a lot of columns. So let's pick the awards table, and from awards table now it is giving us the options like what fields do we want to have in the form. So it's a GUI kind of a thing that you're designing. So well, just to keep it simple, I will have the ID. I will have the full name of the PI. I would have budget. Let's select that, and just the sponsor name. Then we will say next. Now it is asking us for what format we want. I'll go with the tabular. I want to keep it extremely simple. And there is no such requirement that your form should be extremely beautiful, because I don't know how to evaluate beauty of a form at least. So make sure that this is okay, works. And let me give you some name here. I'll say awards class demo and form. You can use FRM, because I remember in one of the YouTube that I was watching on this, then that guy was using FRM as the extension to distinguish forms from other objects. So this is your form. Okay, now the question arises, again you might be thinking about it, like how will the demo go? Somebody asked me this question on Piazza. Then I said, for demo, please come prepared with the PowerPoint, because there are a lot of things that you can demo using PowerPoints, right? At least you can put your RDM there. You can have a short description of the project that you're working on. You can have the name of the project partners there, and the role. Role is extremely important. In that slide, when you're introducing your project partners, you should also mention like who did what, right? So as an example, some of you might like designing the form. Some of you may like designing the report. So if somebody has worked on the forms and report, then that should be mentioned in the presentation. So I would say probably 50% of the information you can have on the PowerPoint. And I think on the Piazza, I told you people that 15% is for the RDM, 10% is for presentation, how you're presenting, how does your PowerPoint look like, whether you have all these informations there or not, and 10 points for the demo. 10 for demo, 10 for presentation, 15 points for RDM. That will make up for 35 points. So yeah, when it comes to forms and reports, I would like you to show that in the demo. Right? So what you can do is once you have done everything which was required for the project, you can take snapshots also. Like this is a form, you can take a snapshot of this thing and include that in your presentation. So have everything, snapshots and all in the presentation, but most likely when you will be doing a demo, I'll say, okay, fine. If you have to show me the forms, take me to the MS Access. Right? You should describe what queries you are writing. You should also have the SQL query over there, snapshot. But I would ask you to run that query in front of me. Okay, I want to see whether the query is working or not. Okay, so forms and all, I would like you to show that on MS Access. So when you're coming to present your final project, please come with MS Access. Right? Demo means your program should be working. You should be able to show me how the queries are running and all. Okay, question? So if you look at this form, although it is an extremely simple form, and you can have simple forms also, you may see that here the information is not, I mean, the data is being shown as hash symbols. The reason behind that is the field that we have for this column is not sufficient. Now question arises, how can we fix it? It is straightforward, right? You can go and work on design, but I find layout more convenient, right? So how can I change that on layout? Go to layout, and in the layout, once you are here, then you can move the boundary. By moving this boundary, again it is extremely simple, right? Probably something that would be difficult to teach, at least for the instructor like me. I found these things little boring or not so interesting. And now let's move this. Okay, so it's about the patience, like how much patience do you have in designing the form. Okay, now I believe this is okay. Let's go back and, right, does it look better? Yeah, it's better than what it was. So fairly simple, right? And if you don't complete forms and all, I'll say that you were probably a little lazy, I would say, or you were not concerned about your grade, and so you missed the form. So what does the form do? It provides you a kind of a GUI for your table, right? So this form is based on awards table. And what I did not include all the columns. I just want some columns. And it all depends on you, like how many columns do you want to have in the form. Okay, and there are different kinds of forms that you can create. The one that I created is a simple one. Questions? Yeah, go ahead.
What is the purpose of a form? Is it to let you enter data?
Exactly, yeah, you can, right?
You're missing some of the
So it is up to you. I'm missing some of the attributes because I did not want to have all the attribute in the form won't look good, right? You try all these things, right? When you're learning how to create the form, then probably you can try that on the data that I excuse me, gave you, like the awards data, and see, it will be cluttered. There are so many columns if you include everything. Okay, so it's up to you. You have to provide a GUI, right? So just forms, they behave just like a view. I'll explain to you what is a view, probably towards the end of this lecture or maybe on Tuesday. So the purpose of the form is just to provide a GUI to the user. Just assume that you are designing this project and you want to hand over to the client, and the client who has to use it won't know how to write the query and all that, how to enter the data. So here you can enter the data as well. So this way you can go to the next record, right? And here you go to the last record, and here we have the option of entering the data. All right, so your demo also says, your project description also says that you should be prepared to demo your forms, the working of the forms, by having the scope of entering the data using a form. So here you can enter the data in this form, right? So let's see, okay, okay. So this ID is auto-filled, so for that reason it was not allowing me to enter that. Let's have the award PI full name, SBU ISC 305 fall 2022, budget 12345, sponsor name, let's say ABC. Okay, and then we will go back. Let's just see, this information has been entered. Okay, so these are a few simple things that you can do with forms. This was an extremely simple form. I think you can go here, and in the form design you can play with it, right? But that is only when you're ambitious about it. I'll say keep it simple, and it all depends on your interest level. Got it? So that was about simple form. Now let's look into the more complicated thing, which is your hierarchical form. So for hierarchical form, this is what I was telling. Make sure that you have established the relationship between the table. Okay, so when I was attempting to design the hierarchical form, I didn't do this part, right? So that's what I said. Probably you designed your RDM in Workbench. If that was the case, you might not have done this. So you better first create this relationship in MS Access. So what I have done here, I will do the hierarchical form for departments and employee. So you look at departments and employee, we have one-to-many relationship when you consider an employee working in an employee working in just one department, and in one department we have multiple employees, right? So for that hierarchy, that one-to-many relationship, I will create the hierarchical form. Okay, and when we design the hierarchical form, then we have this concept of the parent class and a child class, the parent table and the child table. So in this one-to-many that I want to implement using hierarchical form, the parent is going to be the department, because I want to show the department ID, department name, and all the employees which are working in that, right? So we are connecting these two forms together. Okay, so let's go to create, and the same way we will go to form wizard, and in the form wizard now we need to select the departments table, and from the department, wait a second, right? Probably I think I should close this object first. Let's go to create and then form wizard. In the form wizard, I want to use the table departments, and from the departments, let's take this attribute ID and department name, and then we want the second table, which is employees, and from employees I'll take the ID and then the name of the first name of the employee. Let's go on to the next, right? So now if you look at this window, then this window is giving us some template kind of, like in what format we'll see these two forms connected. Okay, so I would say just leave it as it is. Let's not change that here, and let's continue. You'll say next, and here we have the options available. I'll go with the tabular. You can try with the data sheet also. It is up to you what you find more, appealing to eye. We'll go to next. Okay, and then we'll say finish. That's your hierarchical form. Okay, so here this information that you have, like ID and department name, is coming from the one side, and then the employee information, employee ID and name, is coming from the many side. Let's go to the next entry. So in the next entry, in the first entry, let me take you back. For the management, we have only one employee, it seems, that is Alice. If you go to the second one, now we have the department with the ID 2, which is marketing. In marketing, we have these 3 employees working. If you move on, then in the third department, which is accounting, we have 2 employees, right? So I believe this is simple again, not that complex. And believe me, these are the things that you can probably finish in 1 hour max. Okay, designing the forms, you can do that in 1 hour. So we would need 2 hierarchical forms, right? So for these 2 hierarchical forms, you need to identify 2 instances of one-to-many relationship, and that's it. But as I said, make sure that you have those things there in the relationship, right? Questions? And the reports are even more simpler, right? So let's look at the report. For report also, you'll go to create and then report, go to report wizard. Let's take this awards table, and from awards table I'll take ID, award number, PI full name. Let's take the budget and sponsor name. Then we'll say next, right? Next, next, tabular, right? Let's keep it like. See, if you want, you can have more functionalities in the reports and forms, but what I'm showing you is the basic thing. Awards, class demo, and then report, finish. Okay, so here again you can see that the budget has some issues. So what we will do, wait a second, I should go to, let me open it again. I want to go to the layout, and similarly as I did in the forms, I will play with the field. So these things are extremely simple, I would say. You need some patience, to be honest. And here again I will move these. Okay, budget, let's take this thing as well, and we'll extend this. Looks good. And we will go to the report view. Looks better? Alright, so probably the simplest components of your projects are going to be the form design and the report design. And I have been impressed by the students' presentation. They come up with really beautiful forms with a lot of functionalities, like you can add buttons and all. Right, so that is something I'll leave on you. If you want to do it, do it. Otherwise, at least have the basic forms and reports. Okay, questions? So I may not cover the lecture on report for the same reason. There's not much to explain. There are some links to the videos. Please watch those. And as I'm doing the demo, it's extremely simple. If you want, you can have more functionalities, like you can have the average, or the max, minimum, and also those functionalities also you can apply on the reports. Now this is something that I would like to explain, difference between forms and report. Did you guys, can someone explain like how are these two different? Did you find any difference between these two? Yeah.
So you can add stuff to, or add content to a table using a form, but not on a report. A report is meant for you to view the table in a simpler way.
That's correct, right? So the purpose of a report is to get the data in a printable form from either a query or a table and pass it on to somebody. So as an example, assume that Stony Brook University has to report the research, right? Like how much funds they are getting, how are they doing in research. So what they will do, if they have the data on MS Access, then they will create a report. So this looks like a report, and they will simply print it out, or they will export it as a PDF, and they'll send it out to the person concerned. So when you have to communicate your data or share your data with somebody who's interested in it, then you would generate the report for that data. Got it? So report is more for sharing the data in a nice formatted way, whereas the forms are for the purpose as he pointed out. The purpose of the forms is like a GUI which you will use to enter the data. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, so the report is just for the purpose of sharing the information.
So for our presentation, for like the report, we're just going to attach like an image into our presentation of the report.
Yes. So as I said, for your presentation, when you are making your PowerPoint, have everything there. right? As I said, it is not possible for me to take all the demo because I'll be busy around that time. But definitely I'll find one day, probably I'll start the presentations first. So yeah, it all depends on the person who's taking your demo, right? Somebody would, a TA might be interested only in PowerPoint. If that is the case, then you can show everything in the PowerPoint, right? So be prepared with that also. Have the snapshots of all the deliverable items in the PowerPoint, and then it all depends on the grader. If the grader says, okay, fine, as I do, right? Whenever you would start showing me the tables information or the form information and all, I'd say, okay, fine, now let's move to MS Access, right? And show me the stuff working there. Got it? Yeah? Sure.
Because we all have Macs, we don't have Windows computers, we use the MySQL Workbench. So is that still okay, the demo? Because I see there's also like a form editor type of implementation in this as well. Is that my practice?
So for RDM, I believe you're fine. You can take a picture of the RDM, and if you've already done the demo, then that's good. You have done the RDM demo, right?
Yeah.
So just have it there. Probably for RDM, we won't need a demo. We just want a picture of RDM and some explanation.
Implementing the actual database. We have all our tables saved in Microsoft, in MySQL Workbench.
So you have everything on Workbench, but how will you design the forms and reports in Workbench?
Well, there's similar
Oh,
analogs to it in Workbench. I'm looking at a form editor right now.
very good. So that will be impressive if you could do that, right? Probably your group would be the first group to come up with such kind of interface on Workbench. Very good, right? Yeah. So this is my 6th year, I would say. I already completed 5 years here. So your group is probably the first one that will be designing the equivalent of forms and reports on Workbench. Yeah, that's impressive. So you should try to book your presentation slot with me. I would like to see that, right? So if everything is ready, why not try to schedule it on next week, Thursday? Right? Good. So guys, that was it. Oh, okay. So there's one more thing that I wanted to discuss, which is about the second homework. So for that, let me close everything, okay? So for that, we will open access, and here create new database, and for that I will have to say create, and then external data. Let's get it from Excel file. I will browse to desktop, fall, I say 305 data set, and let's use the awards. Where did that go? Open, and then okay, then do next. So we are not changing anything here, and let's call the awards only. And here, this is something that we were not doing till now. We have to do it. What does it say? It says that I would like Wizard to analyze my table after importing the data. So if you go and look at the Excel file for this awards, you'll find that there are so many entities, right? So there is a PI. So PI should be a separate entity. The sponsor should be a separate entity, right? So in fact, if you would let the MS Access analyze your data, then MS Access will do some correction and all, and will come up with some inherent entities, right? So that's what we have to figure out in this second homework. So for that, you will have to let MS Access do it, right? So you will tick this box, which we used to ignore for till the time. Okay, so we'll say finish. So the wizard is now ready to analyze your new tables and data. Would you like to continue? You'll say yes, right? So now it will give you some messages like here we have the duplicate information. If you remember our discussion on normalization, so what MS Access is doing here is kind of normalizing our data, right? So this thing you can apply on your project also if you're comfortable doing it. Let's do next and next, and here I will let MS Access decide. Do you want the wizard to decide what fields go in what tables? We'll say yes. We are totally relying MS Access for this exercise, right? See what happened here. The original file that we had has been split into 5 tables, right? So this is something MS Access did on the basis of the redundancy that we had in this table. What MS Access did, it divided the whole file into these 5 different tables. So in that homework you have to do the same thing. You have to work on the same table, but you need to probably give a better name to these tables, right? So there is a lecture slide that I will be sharing with you. You have to simply follow the information that we have in that homework. So you'll have to probably rename these tables. So this one you would like to call as the awards, and then you will have to probably rename some attributes in the table name, and then you haven't named, we will name it later. Do you want to move on? I'll say yes, and next. You haven't done anything, that's okay. Do you want to really move on? We'll say yes. Next. Yeah, okay, yes. Next. No, not going to finish. So let's see, right? These are the tables that got created. Now let's go to here and look at the relationships, right? So that's what we have. So the homework actually has 2 parts. So the first part is almost done, where what we did, we used MS Access to analyze the data that we had. What data we had? We had the awards information in a file, and what MS Access did, MS Access normalized the tables, I'll say. Normalize that table by creating 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these 5 tables. Okay, and now you have to rename these tables. And I'll have that, I'll share that, like what should you call each table. So that information will come from homework. That's part A. And in part B, what you have to do, in part B, you need to do the same exercise using Workbench. Is that thing clear? All right? Probably 1 hour of work, not more than 1 hour for homework 2. Question? I'll try my best to post this homework by today, by tonight, so that you get at least a week to work on it. But believe me, it's 1 or 2 hours of work max. Question? And the homework will explain that thing. So let me see if I can find that from the previous semester. And if you are stuck, don't hesitate, right? I'll have my office hours next week. I'm not teaching the way I had planned to teach today, but as long as it is helping, I'm fine. Homework. Oh, I don't have second homework here. Probably it's there on. Okay, great. Questions? If not, then let me use my slides here. This is the link for your form. You can watch these YouTube videos to get more depth knowledge about the forms. And then here I have the notes on what I did. So what are forms? These are the formatted windows for data entry and display. So in hierarchical form, you will have these 2, main form and subform. So the demo that I did, in that demo, the main form was department and the subform was employee. So how did we list that? We had department, and then in the department you had the information about all the employees. So this is these slides are just giving you step-by-step instructions like how to create forms. It is up to you whether you want to follow the slides information or you want to watch the video. Anything is fine with me. Now more details about forms, like what do we have in forms. There are so many tools available there. You have controls there, and the form is bound to the table or the query. There are different kinds of forms. It is up to you whether you want to design a detailed form, split form, or subform, or navigational form. So for designing the form, again, you can either use the wizard, form wizard as I used, or you can use other tools. So you have a design available in the form, where in the design you can modify the layout of the form. So here let's look at some form. This is called the detailed form, where you have the detail about one entry. That here this is a split form. In the split form you will have the detailed information as well as the sheet information. So interestingly, for the project, for the deliverable, I did not say what kind of form you have to do. For simple form you can use any one, but we do have the requirement for the hierarchical form, so you should have at least 2 hierarchical forms. Okay, so the hierarchical form, in hierarchical form you'll have the concept of subform, and here it is showing that in order to create the hierarchical form you must first establish 1-to-m relationship, then it will work.